Good evening, and welcome to the Jean Siskel Film Center's Screen to Screen. I'm Jean D. St. Aubin, the Executive Director of the Film Center. We are delighted to have you all with us tonight for a virtual conversation. One of the best parts about seeing a film at the Jean Siskel Film Center is meeting filmmakers and participating in Q&As after the films. This filmmaker discussion brings us together virtually to explore a new, heartbreaking documentary. You are all in for a treat tonight. We have the director of Finding Yingying, Jenny Shi, with us tonight. Jenny brings a unique and up-close view to the subject of Finding Yingying, a perspective that would not have been received from another director. Jenny is a Chicago-based documentary filmmaker whose work addresses social justice issues regarding people of color. She shoots, edits, and produces video stories and short documentaries about immigration, race, and crime in Chicago for multiple local outlets. Moderating our conversation tonight will be Katemquin legend, director, producer, executive producer, sorry about that, Steve James, the director of Hoop Dreams, The Interrupters, and City So Real, to name just a few. We so miss seeing our loyal film patrons every evening at the theater and hope that this coming together will provide a sense of community to our movie-loving audience. How this is going to work is that our guests will be visible on Zoom. You, the audience, will participate through Zoom, but only through the chat feature. As you post questions, we will send them to Steve, and Steve will read them. And if he has time, he will ask your questions. We ask that you make sure your questions are related to the film, use appropriate language, and be brief so that we can get as many questions in as time allows. The conversation will be about 45 minutes long. And now, without further ado, here is Jenny Shi and Steve James.
Thank you, Jean. This is great, and I'm excited to do this Q&A with you, Jenny. I'm assuming that the people who've tuned in have seen your film. We're going to proceed with that assumption, and know just how strong it is. It's certainly getting deservedly rave reviews. I just looked on Rotten Tomatoes and saw it was at 100%, so that's pretty good. And it's really getting the reviews it deserves. It's such a powerful, tragic story, but very intimately told, and so congratulations on the film.
Thank you so much, and I really looking forward to the conversation we're going to be having right now.
Yeah. So first, talk a little bit about what kind of relationship or how you came to find out about Yingying.
Yeah, so Yingying, she went missing in the summer of 2017. And at that time, I was still a student at Northwestern University. So I first learned about her disappearance actually through an alumni group chat on WeChat. That's a Chinese social media. And it turned out that Ying and we actually went to the same university in China. We didn't know each other, but I knew that there's a Chinese girl at U of I, she went missing. And at that time, I didn't really think about making a documentary or whatever. I just like any other Chinese student, everyone was really worried about her safety, especially knowing that she was just new here and not really aware of the surrounding things like that. And I was also posting her information online and trying to find her. And I think after her parents arrived in the US, there were a lot of volunteers. They went down to Champaign to support them. And me as a journalism student, of course, I was curious about what happened and what was going to happen. And I also think about, maybe I can somehow help the family. And that's how I started to following the story and also get too close to the family.
Yeah, you mentioned in the film near the beginning that you're filming initially you think of as just possibly of service to the family and this effort. Is that how you first came to present yourself to the family? What was their reaction to you when you first approached them?
Yeah, actually, when the first time I mentioned, the what I was doing was basically I asked, whether it's a good idea, just started documenting the places used to study and used to work. And the family, they feel like, yeah, actually, it was a good idea to document these places because they could bring such footage back to China to show their relatives about their experience in the US and also Ying's experience in the US. And on my end, actually, I was already started filming like public events at U of I with another volunteer whose name is Shiling Sun. He actually was a U of I student at that time. So like it was Shiling and me, we filming like public events, interviewing Chinese students about their reactions to this incident, while we were also staying with the family and started filming the places Ying used to study and used to work. So that's the general idea. And I think the family at first, it was still about Yingying. And later on, we started to film their search when they were going outside to the like cornfield, things like that. Like they did ask us, why we wanted to film all these scenes. And sometimes they were really shy in front of camera. And on our end, we didn't want to like push really hard. And from our perspective, the ultimate goal is really to help the family. And we just feel like maybe, it could be something really have a big potential after the case is ended. Or sometimes the family, they have the concerns that, if they couldn't find Yingying at all, and whether there's a chance that, the case is gonna be a cold case, what they're gonna do. And we started to talk to them about maybe, this film has greater impact and can help them when the media attention fade away eventually. And they just feel like, yes, that's what they wanted to do. And that's how we basically, we were on the same page and filming together.
So it's always tricky, and when you're making a documentary, and people are dealing with really potentially, and in this case, very much tragic situations ultimately. But for a period of time there, clearly, whatever the police may have thought about the prospects of Yingying turning up alive, the family seems determined to maintain a more positive attitude about that for a while. At least that's the way it comes off in the film. I wonder how you were feeling during that time about what you anticipate or thought might be the truth of what would be discovered, and how was it different or the same as the family?
Yeah, I think for me, I was still in a perspective. I was like seeing everything from a perspective of a volunteer and somehow like a family friend. So like my hope was definitely, maybe like the police, they just made a mistake. Like Xiaoling, he said in the film, there's still some hope. And for me, it's also very desperate to see the family. They just didn't give up on their hope to find their daughter. And sometimes for me, the most difficult part was how to explain the situation to Ying's mother. Because Ying's father and the boyfriend, they would, try to accept what the police told them. But Ying's mom, she was denying, all the time. And she would ask me, and she wanted to find an answer that she wanted. She wanted me to tell her that, Ying is still alive. So for me, I was really struggling with that. But in terms of, what's going to happen next, what the story going to look like, at first, to be honest, I didn't really have a clear idea. From my perspective, it's really to follow the family, to follow the journey, and to see what's going to happen next.
And the journals, her journals or diaries, I assume, or other such writings play a significant role in the film, and they are clearly our window into her. How did you come across them? How did you gain access to them?
Yeah, so it was, I think, 2 months after Ying's disappearance. There was a press conference. That was the first time Ying's family reviewed the diary. And Ying's boyfriend, actually, he read the last line of the last diary entry she wrote, which was "Life is too short to be ordinary." And for me, the first time hearing that line really, made me think about the potential of the film, because that's basically opened the window for us to learn more about Yingying. And eventually, if we can get access to the diary, that would be wonderful material to totally, make a film about Ying herself. So we approached the family about potentially, utilizing the diary. Of course, they were hesitant to show that to us at first because it's something really private and personal, and they were not ready. So we didn't have access to the diary in 2017. It was in 2018 when I traveled back to China. So spent some time with Ying's parents, and I actually saw more Ying's personal belongings, like her bedrooms, her childhood photos, home videos, and her like notebooks. Like she made notes about the books, things like that. And that was the time we talked to the family again about potentially using the diary. And I think they read through the diary she kept in the US first, and to make sure that there's nothing like too sensitive. So they basically took pictures and sent it to us. And there were other like diary entries about her dreams. About her dreams coming to the US, and also about her thoughts that she wrote down when she was still in China. That came really late in post-production stage, because at first we were just trying to, utilize all the materials we've already have, but we realized that it was very difficult to keep Ying alive throughout the whole film. And that was the time we thought about, maybe we could ask the family again to see if there's more diaries. And we also like pitched the idea about utilizing using like motion graphics, animations, and also using my own voiceovers to bring Ying to life. The family, they asked us about like what specific things we need. We told them like about her dreams, diary entries about her relationships with Xiaoling, things like that. And it was the family, they select the diary entry and sent to us. So for us, like how we deal with like Ying's personal handwriting it was very careful. So we wanted to make sure we don't, like go too far. But meanwhile, we really want to show a full picture of who Ying was.
Absolutely, which you do. The decision to go back to China and film with the family, how did you arrive at that decision to do that? And then was there a process of kind of negotiating that in some way with the family?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's necessary. It's always necessary to go back to China to see, what kind of impact that already has on the family. Without the story of the family in China, we can't really tell a full story of finding Yingying. And like from my own perspective, right now, like there are a lot of narratives about like Chinese international students, and people have stereotypes on Chinese students coming to the US. People would thought, they're rich, But in Ying's story, basically she grew up in a very humble family. And the whole family, like Ying's mom, she stayed at home. Ying's father, he's a truck driver. They basically just support their daughter, at all costs. And all of a sudden, their daughter was taken away, and it's such a tragedy. And we really want to show the audience to see like the consequence of such tragedy, and really to see, the people left behind. So I just feel like it's very important to go back to China to see what their real life looked like in China. And also that was during the time they were waiting the trial. So on the other hand, we also see, how are they going to navigate the criminal justice system in the US? And how are they going to understand the cultural differences between China and the US? And of course, like Ying herself, she grew up in China. If we wanted to know more about her, it's important to go back to China. And of the family, they were actually, I think they were quite open to the idea going to the China, because they feel like they were at home. They were more relaxed, actually. In the US, sometimes they were really like worried about jeopardizing the trial. So they tried to behave themselves. But in China, that was a totally different situation. And in the film, you actually realize that there were a lot of intimate moments happen between the parents and me because they were at home. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and there's some tough moments back in China when Yingying's parents, get into it over the whole situation. And of course, your heart goes out to them because it's just an enormously stressful situation. I'm assuming they think of themselves as very private people in a lot of ways. They probably never imagined a movie would be made that they would be in. Were there difficult moments for you with the family around some of those more unvarnished encounters with each other?
Yeah, I think I don't think we ever have like a very stable access to the family for different reasons. One is basically their emotions and feelings, and it depends on the case. Sometimes they were really frustrated about the case itself, so they just didn't want to be filmed at certain point. And sometimes, when they were talking about sensitive information about the trial, they didn't want to be filmed. And sometimes it was just like the family themselves, they kind of started like to fight, like in the film. Sometimes they would hesitate to be in the film. But like from my perspective, capturing that intimate family conflict, that wasn't like in my plan, even though I knew that actually happened. Because when they were still in the US in 2017, they actually fought the night they left for China. And I was there, I wasn't filming. I was like trying to stop the fight with the rest of the family member, with Ying's brother and the other colleagues, Ying's colleagues. And the family, they were really, I would say, like get familiar to me. So in China, when things like this happened, they didn't really try to hide. Like for me, like in that situation, I didn't really have time to react, to make a decision whether I'm going to like stop recording or keep recording, things like that. And the family, specifically talking about that scene in the film, that day I was just filming like the breakfast. Didn't expect anything to happen.
No.
And the family, just started fight. And for me, I think I just record for a while, and then actually I just like put down the camera and stop the fight, because I could see, like potential danger and the consequence going to happen if no one is going to stop the situation. And me as a documentary filmmaker, like I was constantly thinking about like how much I should get involved in the situation. And I think that's also like a very big lesson I learned in past 3 years. And in the trial, we actually lost access to the family for a while, because they were, I think, in a situation that getting a lot of details about the crime, what happened to their daughter. So that was like huge emotional burden on them. And they just said they were not in good mood to be filmed. So the entire guilt phase, we weren't filming with them. And we came back, I think just little by little, start filming maybe 10 minutes or 5 minutes. And we obtained access again after the guilt phase.
Yes. When you were in those moments where they were resistant to filming, did you continue to sort of be this person in their life? You're not filming, but you by now you have been around them quite a bit through this very difficult time. Did you continue to kind of play I don't know what the role would be, but a kind of role in their lives in the midst of this?
Yeah, I think when I was filming, still making Finding Yingying, definitely, I think in 2017, when we first started filming, I would say like 70% of the time we spent with the family was without camera. So Shalin, the cinematographer and the co-producer, he would drive the family to do grocery shoppings. And when the trial happened, because the trial was in Peoria, not in Champaign, so there wasn't a big Chinese group that's supporting the family. So basically during the trial, it was me and Shalin like helping them. And the family, they were happy to see us like around. Even though we lost access to film them, we still like had lunch or dinner together every day. So for me, the relationship with the family is much more beyond participants and the filmmakers. And after we finished the film, we are still in touch with the family. So basically keep them updated about what's going on with the film. And I wanted to make sure, whenever, especially when it's going to release in China, in future, we wanted to make sure that they're aware of what's going on with the film. and the potential impact gonna happen after releasing the film.
And talk a little bit about the impact. Has there, or is it too early to assess any kind of impact from the film?
I think so far, like during the festival circuit, we are actually very glad to see reactions from student community and also like universities. Because before, I don't really think there are a lot of conversations around international students. But right now, I think, it's a conversation that people are starting talking about, and especially thinking about like this year, 2020. It's been really tough to a lot of international students, and also especially to Chinese. And for Finding itself, like it's a story about who Yingying was and how much her life has touched on others. But beyond that, I think there's a big theme, which is also important, is about Chinese international students. And we wanted to use this film to break those stereotypes on us, and really to create like conversations between American students and Chinese students. And these are the conversations we are hearing right now during the festival circuit. And I think in future, we're definitely looking forward to impact campaigns like screenings at universities, just to think about how we can better prepare international students, and basically just every student on campus mentally, and also to provide enough resources for them to better adjust themselves to the campus life. And in China, I'm not really sure, what's the impact gonna be. But eventually, it's a film about Yingying, and if Yingying could be memorized in a great way, I just feel like we did a great job with the film and with the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Did this story have a major profile back in China when it was unfolding?
Yes. So it's been anything related to this case was trending topic in China. In 2017, it's been 3 years. I still remember like when it first happened, I was here, studying at Chicago, and my parents, they were in China. They knew it immediately, and they were texting me, like asking me, how's I'm doing, just don't go outside, things like that. And whatever, like any breakthrough in terms of investigation, people would know that in China. And there are great conversations about studying abroad, studying in America, and a lot of conversations about the differences between US-China criminal justice system. And many people, like including my own parents, they just couldn't imagine, if this happened to their own child, and how they are going to navigate the difficult situation to look for their beloved daughter or son in a foreign country. So I definitely, it's a high profile case also in China. And even today, like we just released our trailer last Friday, and right now, like it's trending in China. So everyone knows this case, yeah.
And do you think it will either because of the film or because of the news coverage of it, do you think it's going to have any kind of profound impact on students coming from China to the United States?
I would say people would definitely think about, again, their decision to coming to the States. Because for me, like I came here in 2016. And the reason why I wanted to come here is, there are a lot of resources and opportunities and for better education, basically. But I didn't really think about the potential danger. And really, I myself, I thought I was fully prepared when I first came here, but that wasn't, the case. And I'm just thinking, this film, right now we just started like film showing in festivals in China. There are already conversations about studying abroad, and Chinese students, whether they are still going to come to the US, basically. And how, if we are going to the US, how we are going to better prepare ourselves. And also parents, I think there was like a big trend to send children come to the US, even in high school or middle school. But right now, there are serious conversations about studying abroad and what is best for their own children.
And I assume Yingying's parents have seen the film.
Yes.
And what was their response to it?
Yeah, so actually there's a story about like showing the film to Ying's parents. We definitely wanted to show them in person. So we were actually planning, like I myself planning going back, but like COVID happened. So like we just can't realize our our plan. So I actually asked one of my friends in China. She traveled to Ying's hometown and bring the film on her laptop to show them. So somehow they would have a person sitting there with them. And Shilling and I, we actually Skype in. So we are still like watching the film with the family real time. I would say like before showing the film to them, I had some concerns in different ways. One is there are certain scenes in the film, especially like the family fight. In Chinese culture, we just don't want to show family affairs, family conflicts in public. So I was really nervous about that scene. And also, I actually think about whether we should show the film to Ying's mom, since like every time she heard about things related to Ying's case, she would probably like break down. So we just didn't know whether she needed to know so much details about what happened and the conversations around. But we later just decided to let her to make the decision. You know, if she wanted to watch the film, just let her watch. So she eventually decided to watch the film. So it was Ying's mother and Ying's father. They were watching the film. Ying's mom, she started like crying when she first, I think it's at the beginning of the film, it's still the diary, but she just couldn't hold herself. And my friend, she was like hugging the mom the whole time. And Ying's father, he was pretty calm, throughout the whole film. And like when it came to the family fight, Ying's parents, they didn't really say anything. And then after like the screening, I asked them specifically if there's any scenes they don't want to include in the film, or they have any concerns, or they have anything they wanted to add into the film. The only thing they wanted to add is the civil lawsuit against the UFI. That's something they just feel like, it's still going on, and they really wanted to see, what's next they could do. And in terms of like the family conflicts and what happened to Yingying, they just feel like, it is what actually happened. There's nothing to hide. And people don't really see such stories in a daily news, like during daily news. And that's something really go beyond headlines. And that's actually they wanted to show to the audience. People don't understand what kind of hardship they've gone through, even though people like could try to imagine, what kind of situation they were, but it's different from you actually seeing what actually happened. So yeah, so that's the reaction from the family, and we were, relieved after they talk about their thoughts, and definitely we are still working with them about how to kind of let or more audience to hear about their stories and Ying stories.
I just say to the folks who are tuning in to put some of your questions in the chat box, and we'll try to get to them. Here's one that's interesting. Peter Mark asks, did the University of Illinois agree to speak to you, or were they prevented by their legal advisors?
So actually we did interview UFI. Yeah, I think we interviewed like them twice when we were making the film in the past 3 years. But that was basically focused on, what kind of work they've done in terms of like the incident. But eventually we didn't include their perspective. We already show what they've done, like the press conference, like the memorial garden, or their universities, their walk and the march on campus, things like that. The really interesting thing we really wanted to ask was about like the civil lawsuit, but they declined to comment on that. Mm-hmm. So we just didn't, follow up for further comments, things like that. Yeah, and again, because this film is about Yingying, we don't want to get into like lawsuit against the university too much. Otherwise, we would just kind of like lose the story. So that's why we still want to stick to Yingying herself.
So let's talk a little bit about you and how you've found your way to make this film? Did you come to America with the intention of studying film, and if so, documentary film, or tell us a little bit about how you came to do this?
Yeah, I would say actually I didn't really plan to be a documentary filmmaker or making a film. I came here as a journalism student. So I was in a program at the McGill School of Journalism at Northwestern University, and that was a 1-year journalism program. So what I did was basically going out in Chicago and create stories, short pieces. Sometimes it's an article or a short video stories. And it was in my last quarter at Northwestern. I was in Brent Hoffman's class. He's my professor at Northwestern, and he later became one of the producers of the film. I was in a documentary journalism class. So that was a 10-week class, really to get to know what is documentary filmmaking. And Brent, he was such a great professor that gave us a lot of guidance, kind of making like a student project. And I think during that time, I was actually following another story in Chicago about undocumented immigrants. And Ying's story is always in my mind, thinking about that's something really important to myself, but I didn't really know if I have the capacity to, document that story as well, because it's done in Champaign. But I think it's until the FBI, they announced, they made an announcement saying that they arrested a suspect and they don't believe Yingying is still alive. And that was the moment I realized that, there's much more is gonna happen. And I just decided to drop my Chicago story and decided to focus on Yingying's film and didn't really think about how long I'm going to follow the story. And for me, the thoughts of kind of being a documentary filmmaker as my career actually came from the process of making Funny Yingying. Because for me, that was something made me think about, the responsibility of a filmmaker, what kind of story we can tell, and how it can be different from, again, daily news, how deep we can go. And I think the most fascinating part is the human interest and the relationship I built with the participants. Even though in school, I learned that, you need to be a fly on the wall, don't get too involved in the story itself. But for me, it was really a very special feeling that I got close to Ying's parents, and Ying herself, she actually became an inspiration to me, because she's not we were around the same age. She was 26, 27 when she went missing. And now I finished the film. I'm 27 years old now. So yeah, sometimes I would think about the parallel between Ying and I, and really think about what kind of great things he could have done if she was still with us, and really think about how we can carry on her spirit with this film. And for me, making this film, I just realized that there are so many stories about Chinese and the Chinese American experience. And for my future projects, I definitely wanted to focus on something related to my own identity, as a Chinese in the US, and also as a female filmmaker, what kind of things I can do, not just telling stories, but social impact I can make.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, she is inspirational. That really comes through strongly in your film, which only further makes it that much more tragic, her loss. So you're now a documentary filmmaker by profession, you think? This is your career path for sure? You're not going to go back to the idea of maybe being more of a daily journalist at all? We've pulled you over to the dark side?
I love documentary filmmaking. So for me, I've already have some ideas about what I'm gonna do next. And I just really, cherish the connections I've already made during the time making Funny Yingying. And I just feel as a first-time filmmaker, it was very difficult to navigate the industry and to make the first film. But I was very lucky that I got into the Diverse Voices in Documentary program at the Cartanquin Films. And Cartanquin has been such a big supporter to me and to the project. And they really believe in new voices, diverse voices. And I never imagined that I'm going into a direction as like an independent filmmaker, but I'm kind of like positive about direction I'm going, maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe there are a lot of challenges and difficulties in front of me, but I love to, try this path and to see what's going to happen.
I think we want you to continue to stay on this path. Do you see yourself staying in the States, or was it always your intention when you came here to study to maybe at least live part-time in the States, or were you just coming here for an education and then planning to go back?
I think at first I was just for education and planning go back. And, again, like during time when I had to make a decision whether to stay here or go back, that was the time I'm making Fun Yingying. So obviously I'm just here making the film, but I just feel like for me, I kind of like already found my passion about what kind of career path, and especially think about, what I could do back in China. There are like some restrictions in terms of like creative choices. So I would love to do the stories I'm really passionate about. It can be about China, it can be about US, it can be about, anywhere, as long as it's a great, compelling story. And I didn't know like whether, I don't know whether I'm going to like stay here forever, but at least next few years, I will continue like work here.
So do you have your next idea in mind yet?
Yes.
You don't have to tell us about it though, if you don't want to. I know how that can be.
In general, it's still about Chinese American experience, but it's still in development, and I'm doing a lot of research. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. But you're done with school now.
Yes. Right? So I graduated in 2017.
Oh, right.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So like it's been like 3 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. You're a veteran at this point. Talk a little bit about the editing of the film and the decisions, creative decisions around the use of the diaries. How that was very delicately handled, I thought. What went into your decision making and creative ideas to fashion that into the film?
Yeah, I think I started to think about how I'm going to structure the film when I was still filming in early stage, but that was too early, and we didn't really know what's gonna happen next. And I thought maybe I'm gonna do like some investigation, things like that. But later on, I just realized that there are already a lot of articles and even video stories about the investigation, and some would really focus on the perpetrator, trying to, to figure out his personal relationship, things like that. And I just feel like Ying and her family stories were somehow lost in all this chaos. And I just really think about, this film should be something about that. And also like the more time I spend with Ying's parents and other close friends of Yingying, I really got to know her. So that was the time I started to think about, it's gonna be about Yingying. And in post-production, at first we only have like some home videos, some childhood photos, and some diaries. And we wanted to make sure that the audience know about Yingying at the beginning of the film. So we tried to like put a lot of materials at the beginning, but then we actually ran out of like the materials to keep her alive in the middle and the end of the film. And especially like the trial part, sometimes it can be edited in a way that really investigation like heavy, and really having the prosecutors or the witness talking about what exactly happened. And we were constantly trying to figure out like a balance, and also how to shape the story and how much crime, how much in story like we should tell. And also like myself, I wasn't in the film at all. At first, we were just trying to, use my own voice as like a temp voiceover, just to put it there. And then I think in late production, post-production, we just feel like there's no way to kind of like, do everything and without like her diaries, a lot of her diaries. So that was when I mentioned before, we asked the family again about the diary, whether they had more materials of Yingying. And I myself started to think about like my role in the film. So like at first, I think in 2017, we had a work in progress screening at Cartanquin actually. And that was me showing like a 20 minutes like short version. And there were audience ask, who's making this film and whether you are exploiting the family. Because that was about a grieving family. And that was the time I started to think about, whether I should talk about why I wanted to make the film. It will be very different, from an outsider, and also from an outsider and someone had similar experience like Yingying. And I later on, like Ying's parents, they had a lot of conversation with me, and I just feel like there were a lot of moments and information that couldn't be told without my existence in the film. So that's how, in post-production, we gradually add my portion into the film. Yeah, and I think I really wanted to thank our amazing editor, John Fabrother. He's really amazing, and he just did the like motion graphic, the draft motion graphic, and really bringing to life. And the first time I saw like the clip he showed us of a short like rainy day sample of our diary, we were totally blown away, and we just realized, okay, right now we are sure about we are going to make a beautiful film about Yingying herself.
Yeah, you did. And John is a terrific editor. I've worked with John, and a great guy to boot. So very a lovely person to work with. Yeah, I think the way in which you fold your own involvement into the film is handled very nicely, because it would be easy to overwhelm the film with too much of the filmmaker's presence. But I feel like you were very judicious and in doing that. But it does add this dimension of identity, your identity, and you're identifying with Ying that enriches our understanding of her, because she only exists for us through pictures and diary, essentially. So we're gonna have to wrap up here shortly. I wanted to let me look and see if there's any other. There was one question back here. Was there a delay between when the authorities got the confession from the murderer and when the family was given info about where Yingying's remains were?
Yes, so there was a delay, and I think it's mainly about like the legal process in the US. The prosecutors, they learned about the whereabouts of where Yingying was, but they made a decision that they're not going to, because I think there's like a chance to argue for a like plea deal. But I think it just didn't happen. And according like to some like legal obligation, they just can't use that piece of information in the trial. I think Ying's boyfriend, he learned about the details. He's the first person learned about details, and probably Ying's father. But Ying's mother, she was always the last person to learn about like all the details. And I would say like it was at the press conference at the very end of the film where the lawyers, they talk about Ying's whereabouts, potential whereabouts to the audience. That was the first time Ying's mom actually learned about what happened to her daughter. So for me, like as someone filming this scene, it was very heartbreaking, because I just couldn't imagine how the family, especially Ying's mom, what was going on like in her mind at that moment. And she just broke down. We didn't include that in film, but at that moment she broke down again. And in this film, I think we really show the cultural differences and also the differences between the American criminal justice system and the Chinese criminal justice system. And we didn't want to, I mean, I myself, I don't want to like pick a side and blaming the other side. It's more about showing the difference and let an audience to sit in the family's shoes and to see, what's the hardship they're going through.
Yes. Well, I think it's time to wrap up. I'm going to close with a quote because the other people in the chat have seen it, but I don't know if you have, because you've been too busy answering questions. But from Steve Bogner and Julia Reichert, two amazing filmmakers that you've worked with. And they write, Jenny, no question really, but we wanted to say that hearing about all that you went through to make this film, all the hurdles, challenges, makes us appreciate your achievement as a filmmaker all the more. We are excited to see your future films. It was great to work with you on American Factory. You were amazing. Your film is heartbreaking and suspenseful. I second that. And we are very proud of you and look forward to the end of COVID and a trip to Chicago. So I think you might want to take a screen shot of that and hold them to that. Make them come here to visit you. You've put yourself out there, Steve and Julia, so make sure you do so. And I want to thank you for this conversation. Really loved your film and really enjoyed speaking to you about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It really was a great conversation. Thank you so much for Steve and Jenny for your time. And I loved reading all of the comments and the questions. The film obviously really touched people. So thank you. I want to thank you both for joining us tonight and letting us be together and talk about a film that I think has touched a lot of people. For more of these types of conversations, which we call Screen to Screen, please check out our website. And we also have another one this Wednesday night with the documentary film, We Are Unarmed, which is a look at the peaceful and prayerful resistance to the Dakota Access Pipeline. So check out our website to find out the details. Also, if you have the means, please consider making a donation to the Gene Siskel Film Center. We would greatly appreciate it. The revenue that we are generating from streaming is a small fraction of what we normally make at our box office when we're open. So please, everybody, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones, be kind to strangers, and we look forward to connecting again through the Film Center's Screen to Screen. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.